All right. So again, welcome to Purpose of this book with David G and David G. And tonight we are on page 84, first full paragraph. I wonder, David, maybe, we're not going to rehash. We finished up with those 9-step promises last week, and we said we're not going to talk about them again. Maybe I'll just read them again and so that it flows into this next paragraph and we'll take it from there. Okay. Okay, guys. So we'll pick up on the bottom of 83 just to reread those 9-step promises, and then we'll get into new content. So if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. You say something?
Of course, I
Yeah.
have to.
Go ahead, brother.
So remember, guys. Now, on page 52, we talked about the bedevilments, and here we are, just 31 short pages later. These observations, we call them the promises a lot of times in our 12-step meetings, but these are really great observations. They're observations of what the transition between what our life looks like on manageability to the observations of these promises, these 12 promises that David read. And one thing that's really cool about this is we're finally having a relationship with power. We're having a relationship with power. We absolutely are. And by the way, all these steps here and the way we work them, with the desperation of a drowning man, it is the antidote to step one: power, God of our own understanding, God of our no
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
That's the antidote to step one. I must have this if I'm going to stay recovered. So, and one other thing that's not relevant to this, because we read the set aside prayer every week. I just want you guys to know there's hundreds of forms of set aside prayer, and
Mm-hmm.
they're wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, have your own. That's great. Well, we got ours is if you look in the big book, you find it on page 42, 52, and 58. That's where you find bits and pieces that we picked apart, and we actually got it from Herb K, if I'm not mistaken. But that's where he got them at. So it was on page 42, 52, and 58. You can check me out if you want later after the meeting. Again, it's not relative to the reading tonight, but I always like to know where things are coming from. They are coming out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
And the one thing I guess we didn't do, because I know everybody likes to take a lot of notes in these studies, we didn't actually enumerate all 12
Hmm.
promises, and I don't actually have them numbered in this copy. So let me know if I screw up here, David. But I'll just
Oh,
sort of speak them to you guys, and we'll. So back on 83 on the bottom, the first promise. So there's 12 of these nice to promises, at least in this paragraph, right? There's some other ones, but in this one, and maybe Rob, do you have these listed, numbered out the 9-step promises 1 through 12, Rob? All right, you
of
want to
course he
show them real quick?
does.
Yeah, of course he does, right? And I'll just read them from that.
Silly.
That way I won't screw it up reading them. So this is good to take notes in your big book, guys. And not every time, Bill didn't do this perfect, right? He did it perfectly imperfect. So in other parts of the books where we've got series of promises, they're not always 12, but it is amazing how frequently he did manage to do uh, 12 promises, which, if nothing else, is super fun. All right. So rereading them. Number one, promise number one: we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self seeking. Wait, hold on a sec here. Oh, no, these are not broken down into 12. All right. I'm going to
Sorry, I've
freewheel
got
these.
nine of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me take you through how I got 12. So first one's conditional. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, promise number one, we're going to be amazed before we're halfway through. Number two, we're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. Number three, we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Number four, We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. Number 5, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see our experience can benefit others. Number 6, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Number 7, we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Number 8, self-seeking will slip away. Number 9, our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Number 10, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Number 11, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And number 12, we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. So I think actually in this paragraph, each of those is actually separated by a period. So I think it makes it pretty simple to enumerate. And of course, like everything, it's an interpretation. It's how we read it. How I laid this out at 12 is no more right than how Rob had this laid out in 9. Because again, we can collect those 9-step promises to offset the bedevilments, as we talked about last week. And what are there, 8 bedevilments, 7, something like that, right? So depending on how crazy we want to get to line things up, we can number them differently. Okay. New content, first full paragraph in 84. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. So, Abby, where are you? There you are. Anything, Ab? Yeah, come on in.
I just have materialize, which is to take on a material form or to become a realized fact.
Okay. Let me jump in here, David. So, are these extravagant promises? So, are what? Well, that whole series of words, and sentences we just read. Are these extravagant promises? And, extravagant, big, sort of impressive, overwhelming? We think not. Our friend Nance that David and I studied with for a long time, she would actually say, hell yeah, these are extravagant promises. Because if I'm coming through the book, right, I started in the doctor's opinion, and now I've got another, so those 10 pages plus 83 pages under my belt, I'm only just starting to grasp getting a little better, getting a little healthier here. And so for me to conceive that I could actually behave, think, feel, and react this way feels a little extravagant to me sometimes. But here's the good news, the next sentence. Even if I do think they're extravagant, whether I do or not, the good news is these promises are being fulfilled among us. It means it's happening to me. It will happen to you. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. This is another great example of a phrase or part of a phrase that comes out of the literature that people throw around very liberally in meetings. We talked about back when we were in How It Works. We claim spiritual progress, versus spiritual perfection. And people will sit in meetings and they'll just go on and so this terrible situation that they were in and how they really ran their mouth recklessly and they really behaved irresponsibly. And they're like, well, I'll do better next time. Progress, not perfection. That's not what this is talking about, right? Spiritual progress, progressing spiritually, means that I'm continuously devoting myself to my higher power and his service as his agent to try to help you guys and everybody else. And in the same way here, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, it's really the continuation of that thought that says, if I recognize that my life's unmanageable, that I've got this spiritual malady, that I recognize that I'm the self-imposed crisis, right, that I've been crushed by, and if I focus my power on turning my will and my life, my thoughts and my actions over to God, and again, serving him, acting as his agent, helping you guys, then I'm going to start to reap the benefits and, more importantly, the freedom that comes with these 9-step promises. And some of these promises might be prevailing a little ahead of the others. Some of them might be a little slower. And when that's happening, I have to look in the mirror. I got to pray. I got to probably talk to sponsors or running buddies and say, I'm not enjoying this promise. Can I get some spiritual consent about what I might be missing? However, the big closer, even if some of them aren't going at the speed that I would like, because I've got great expectations, this is another promise. They will always materialize. I will get all of these promises if, huge 2-letter word, if I work for them, right? Not if I pine for them, not if I just pray to God to give them to me, not if I come and show up in the rooms and complain that I'm not feeling better, but what am I doing? How am I taking the steps? How am I being of service? How am I being together in unity? How am I pursuing a program recovery? And if I'm doing all those things zealously, then I'm going to get this promise.
Yeah, not a lot to add to that. You did a wonderful job summing up that paragraph. The only thing I'll add to that is we're talking about sometimes quickly after the dash. That's a spiritual experience, and sometimes slowly is the spiritual awakening. So, what happened though right before that paragraph is something that I pointed out last week in the 12th promise here. If we go to the last little sentence, we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. So realize is seeing things with real eyes, like actually awake, not dream or asleep, not asleep dreaming I'm awake any longer, like actually awaken to this power. And as I go through here and as I get to step 10 here, I'm going to find out that I have access and I have available to me this power in my life all day long. The reason why I will have that is because this is how pertinent what we're going to get into here. It is vital for me to stay spiritually fit, to stay in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. You know, a lot of time I did not know this when I first got sober. No one explained this to me. And I had a wonderful sponsor with a lot of 24 hours, but we never cracked open the book. Like I learned this stuff from a lot of speakers. And when I found out that these disciplines of 10, 11, and 12, because what the first 9 steps gave me was it replaced everything that alcohol gave me, you know, because alcohol no longer became my solution, or cocaine. But I needed something more powerful than that. And what that's done is it gave me a relationship with God, with you, and with myself. That's what steps 4 through 9 have done for me. So this is so important for me. And the last thing I'll say here, and this is truthful, it will be the last thing I say here. David had always points out that for him, for me, for a few of us anyways, maybe all of us, find something in the book that you find a passion towards. You know, Heather, page 52, David, page 27. This is mine. This is mine right here, guys. What we're going to get into here, I love the disciplines of page 84 and the second paragraph. And I love the promises in the bottom of page 83 and 84 and 85. And if you're one of my guys that I work with, you know that because I hammer this home all the time. Where was that phone call? What did you ask God? I don't want to jump ahead too far, but these things here are so pertinent for me to continue to have that relationship with God. So that's it.
Well, David, I'm going to prompt you. I think you got to say a little bit more about this because I'll say a little and then I'm going to turn it back to you. So where are we here, guys? We have just completed the content on step 9. So we're actually moving into another phase here, right? Of the entire program of recovery. And so a way of looking at what we've studied so far, you've heard David, if you've been studying with us, say this probably dozens of times. The way that this book is laid out is that the first, 53 pages, roughly, doctor's opinion, and pages, 1 through 43 are dealing with our powerlessness. That doctor's opinion in the first 23 pages, generally the focus is on our physical powerlessness, our allergic reaction, breakout and craving. Then pages 23 to 43, generally speaking, about our mental powerlessness, our obsession that we pick back up. We cannot differentiate the true from the false. We have poor judgment, poor discernment, poor decision making about picking up the next drink or the next drug, placing the next bet. Right. Then starting on page 44, we're really getting into our chief problem, the unmanageability in our lives, our spiritual malady, we are just bereft of power, no power. And so as we study step 1, and then we get into step 2 and step 3 and we agnostics, and then we get into all these steps, really steps 1 through 3 are intended to give me my baseline understanding that I am powerless and my life is screwed up. And that if I want to get some power and I want to get better, I better come around to a little bit of belief, a little willingness to believe, and then I better make this commitment in step 3. Commit to what? to commit to getting healthy. And then how do I get healthy? Well, I make an inventory in 4, a threefold inventory: resentments, fear, and sex conduct. I share that with God and somebody else in 5. I get entirely ready to have God remove those defects of character in 6. And I say, if you were like me and you did your 4th step thoroughly and honestly, it's very difficult to look at that piece of paper and not be entirely ready to have God take that stuff away. 7 gets a little trickier, because then I didn't just decide to stop playing God, but in 7, I actually have to stop playing God. Again, if I want to get better. I get into 8, I go back to my list from 4, I do a little bit more inventory, mark up some harms, and then we just finished 9. And the culmination of 9 is that if I did all this work before, and I did it all thoroughly and honestly, I'm going to start to get better. The promises, they will always materialize. That list of 12 promises is going to happen to me if I did it. What this is further going to say as we get into now this next phase, this is what David is starting to get excited about. These disciplines, the how I live my life, how I stay recovered. I get recovered through 9, and I stay recovered in 10, 11, and 12, and I grow in my recovery. It's not stability. It's not maintenance. A lot of people, and I used to say this, these are the maintenance steps. This is not what we're going to read. These are discipline steps. To maintain is to stay the same. I am to grow through these steps, right? So we're really getting in sort of the 3rd chunk. Those first 3, to understand, to surrender, 4 through 9 to get better. And then as I'm cleaning up the past in 9, then I'm going to grow in understanding and effectiveness and really get busy helping God and his kids in these disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. So I think it's worth, David, please get on some more on this and set this up.
And you did a great job of running us through the steps there. And let's be real clear. Let's do this quickly. Let's get to God now, because that again is our antidote to step 1. I have to have that antibiotic because I'm going to die from this disease. Then I'm going to take you word by word through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, then take you through the traditions, and then we study the service manual right now. This is what we do as a group. I got to learn more about this so I can be armed with the facts about myself, so I carry a clear-cut directions with precise and specific directions here. But one thing that you brought up is on page 76, when we're looking at the 7-step prayer, God isn't coming to me in the 7th step and saying, hey, can I have your permission to remove these things? Or will you give me your help to do this? No, I have to give him consent to do this. I have to be willing, pray for the willingness to do this, and not to be clinging to anything right now. So when I give him consent, he removes the things that he finds that needs to be removed, or the things that because I don't know the difference between my liabilities and my assets. And when I can do that, then I can go on to 8. And how do I know I'm at 8? I'm at 8 when I have a pencil and a paper in my hands. And then I'm here in 9. And these observations, like I said, in page 52, my life is so unmanageable. It is, man, I tell you, we get more head shaking, yes, in treatment centers when we go there and do this, or we carry this message online and Zoom or wherever David and I get to talk at. When we talk about the bedevilments, when we talk about these things, because they just resonate, that is the problem. But 31 short pages, the observation is that these things will come true for us, or have come true, or halfway through. But here's the thing. I can't even conceive of not getting into the 10th step immediately upon me doing 9. I can't even conceive not doing that. I have to do that. But I didn't know that when I first got sober, because nobody told me that. But that's the whole point, is to immediately get my list, my index cards, if that's what I choose to do. 3 piles. The first pile of my 9-step amends should look like this. If you choose, your choice. Nowhere in the book does it say this. This comes from Joe Hawk. Easy ones, all the amends easy to make, the ones right in front of me. The ones that I'm a little hesitant about, maybe I owe some money to, and I got to talk to the wife and make sure it's okay and I don't break the bank here. And the ones that I find absolutely impossible or difficult to do. And my experience is, if I take these index cards everywhere I go, these people will start showing up in my life. And they do. And I get to make these amends to them. And I've made all my amends, right? Without harming anyone. That's the key to that thing. I don't get to harm anyone any more than I already did. But as the pile of the easy ones dwindle down to 0, the middle ones come on over. The hard ones go to the middle, and so on and so forth. And that's how this thing works. So again, but I can't conceive of not doing 10 immediately upon my first amends. I have to get into this right now. I have to stay spiritually fit. And I can't do this on my own power. I have access and available to me, God, because this is what this is looking like for me. Finally have a relationship with power right now. I got to continue to grow an understanding of effectiveness of this. This is the part of the 10-step discipline. And how am I going to do that? We are undisciplined people, if you don't mind me using the word we here. I need to be disciplined. And that's what 10, 11, 12. This is where I live all day long. All day long. You know, I had one of my guys call me this morning because he got in a confrontation in a parking lot with someone. And he felt horrible about it, but he couldn't even control himself. And it was he reacted. And the question I had for him was simple. Where was God in all this? You know, the bottom in the 11th step, we're going to find out that we need to pause when agitated. Like, these are some great directions. And agitation comes long before rage and anger. Long before that. Agitation means that I'm feeling a little itchy inside. Something's going on in here. You know, I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. What was my spiritual condition in that moment? Well, what happened in there? A fifth tradition talks about that we carry this message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Or our primary purpose is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Well, all of a sudden, I became my primary purpose. Maybe I haven't been going to meetings and helping other people, taking people through the work. You know, maybe I'm skipping a few meetings. Maybe I'm not doing 12-step work with someone right now. Maybe I stopped volunteering, doing stuff, and now I'm my primary purpose. My spiritual condition, because it's a daily reprieve, is dwindled down to absolutely nothing. So, of course, I react to everything and everyone. That's why what we're going to set up here in this 10-step discipline is so vital. The what at, you'll see what the acronym looks like here in a little bit. It is so important that I am awake to this right now. I have to be awake to this, and I have to perform this, and I have to practice this, and this becomes second nature if I do this all day long.
And one more thought. Again, recapping where we are to this point in the book. 53 pages on powerlessness to kick things off. And then there's about 4 or 6 pages. We had it in that Herb K handout from last week. I don't know, Rob, you got that? If you want to throw that in the chat one more time. Then the meat of the action, steps 4 through 9. Step 4 starts on the very bottom of 63. Next, we launched out on the course of vigorous action. And we just wrapped up step 9 in the middle of 84. 84 minus 63, told there would be no math. 21 pages. 21 pages to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How much procrastination goes on by people, by me, when I first did this, I bet by many of us, I shouldn't say all of us, by many of us. And how about many of the people that we sponsor? Guys, we cannot, there is no chapter into consideration or into contemplation or into sloth or procrastination, into action. Let's go. Let's go. We steal this from Howard. He says this all the time. We don't know what the window of opportunity is of the newcomer. Got to get them. Got to move quickly. Nothing is to be gained by taking our time. And again, you love studying the book like we love studying the book. If you're new or you're new studying it for the first time, you're like, but I want to get more into 6. I want to get more into 7. Let's take the steps in their entirety the first time, and then let's go back and dig deep and get spiritual and read the other literature. First time through the steps, we got to get people to God. Because this is life or death, guys. People die. We are not in the results business, but we are damn well in the business of helping save lives. Guys, we cannot let people die on our watch. This is our responsibility.
And there's a wonderful piece of literature out there, Why We Were Chosen. Pick it up, take a look at it. It's one of my favorite little pieces. Why we were chosen. We were chosen to carry this message, not my message, but this message. And I got a guy I'm working with who's got 3 years of sobriety. And David and I did a big book study live. We've done it on Zoom. We've been doing it for years now. And he took over. He's got 3 years of sobriety. And one of David's grand sponsees is doing it, who's got 2 years of sobriety right now. And they're killing it. They're absolutely freaking killing it. They got 40, 50 people live at this club near us. And they're doing a wonderful job. And the guy called me the other day, my sponsee called me and he says, I got a guy who's been sober for a while, but he just keeps relapsing. And his sponsor just fired him. And I took him through 1 through 3 this afternoon. I'm thinking about taking him to, and the reason why I bring this up is because we're really setting up, because step 10 here, step 10 is going to be an accumulation of steps 4 through 9.
Absolutely.
But why I'm talking about this is because he asked me, he says, do you think it's okay if I just have them do one inventory at a time, like start it and complete it? I'm like, absolutely, dude. I do that all the time with people, especially if they've been around for a while. Instead of overwhelming them with do the resentment one, start with the, up and down, not left to right. Do your resentments, and I used to do it that way, but I don't. Not all sizes fit all, but with him, I agreed. He says, I think I need to start with this fear inventory. I said, if that's what you think you need to do, dude, that's what you need to do. Because we got to start somewhere. And David always says this: the fourth step is the celebration, to find out where I am wrong and what my faults are. Not what my part is, never my part, always my wrongs and my faults. And so that I can get to God so he can take these things from me, so that I can go out and make amends and start having a relationship with God, myself, and others. Others can be capital letter O, with meaning God, or it can be lowercase, which means you. And then I can live in these disciplines in 11 and 12. And Mark Houston says it best than anybody does, I think, anyways. How free do you want to be? Live in these disciplines of 10, 11, and 12.
The answer to how do I know if I'm doing my fourth step inventory correctly? Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. That's it. Mm-hmm. But thorough, was I honest? All right. Woo! Oh. I'm fired up. All right. Let's get into 10. Second full paragraph on 84. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living when? As we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. There's a lot in this paragraph, guys. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. What do you got, Ab?
I have vigorously, and that is carried out forcibly, strong, or energetic. Commenced is to start, begin, or initiate, and effectiveness is producing a desired result.
All right, David, get us started. I feel we're going to go merry-go-round here. First few revolutions.
Okay, so we're talking about this thought. What's the thought? This is prior sentence. That they will always materialize if we work for them. What is the they? The they are these 9-step observations here. And then the key word there is if. That's a condition. If we encircle the word work, if you like, because this is work. This is about action. It's always going to be about action. And anytime I use the word God, I'm always thinking about what does that word mean to me? That means action. He's always working in my life. Like God is already in my tomorrow. That's my understanding of God anyways, or my no understanding of God. So this is about work. And that's the thought that's going to bring us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take a personal inventory, personal pertaining to one's relationship with God, self, and others. So a personal inventory, we did the mother of all inventories in step 4. So we're familiar with this inventory process already, and continue to set right the new mistakes as we go along the way. This is a must that I do this. I have to set new mistakes as we go along. And then vigorously we commence this way of living. That's steps 10, 11, and 12. As we cleaned up the past, that's step 9. Then we've entered the world of spirit. The world of spirit is a noun, a place. Remember we made contact with God in step 3? That he would provide everything I need if I stay close to him and perform his work well. That's on page 63 in the first paragraph. And then it says, for me anyways, that means I left the world of self. I'm in the world of the spirit, no longer in the world of self. That is something that I could not do. Remember even on when the fear inventory, our fears fall from us. That's a fifth step promise. Same thing with the self here. Now I'm in the world of spirit means I've left the world of self. And by facing and being rid of the things that have been blocking me, that's the work from steps 4 through 9. That's why I can have a relationship, be in the world of the spirit today. And the world of the spirit takes me beyond the physical, the mental, the emotional dimensions of life. This is the directions that I need to follow here today if I want to have this freedom that I have. And then this is not an overnight matter. So remember, a lot of times in meetings we hear, one day at a time. This is the only reference to one day at a time I think they talk about in the big book, where they're talking about this is not an overnight matter. This is just in today, in the moment, right now. It should continue for our lifetime. I have permanent sobriety as long as I stay in the disciplines of 10, 11, 12, as long as I stay close to God and perform his work well, as long as I'm an agent of God. I have right at my fingertips the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, armed with the facts about myself that I carry this message to other people who are suffering today. And then continue to watch. So you want me to stop there and then you go ahead and do what I just did? And
yeah, sure.
Because we're getting into disciplines.
Please. Yeah, so I'm sure I'll just double down on a few of these concepts that David already brought up. So, with this thought that all these promises, I'm going to enjoy these promises. I'm going to get the freedom from these promises if I work for them, right? We already hammered this a lot so far tonight. Got to do it all. I have to work without reservation. My motives have to be pure and directed to be God's agent and to help you guys and all the rest of his kids, all 8 billion of us on the planet. So this thinking is going to bring me into 10. And then what's the point of 10 as it's being detailed here initially by Bill, though obviously he's going to expand his thinking, suggests I continue to take personal inventory. So David said that 10 is a consolidation, it's an aggregation, an accumulation of 4 through 9. I'm going to continue to take personal inventory. So I'm going to continue to look at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and continue to set right any new mistakes. 9, as we go along. Am I going to make new mistakes? Yes, you bet your bippy. I'm going to screw up. I don't think there's any promises in here that suggest, and it has not been my personal experience or the experience of some of you guys who I know pretty well, that we become these perfect people, right? And going back to 58, 59, we're not saints. It doesn't mean we go and willfully, wantonly act out because we feel like being jerks. That's not what this is about. This is about recognizing that we have guides to progress, and we are holding ourselves to a higher standard, God's standard, to grow and get better and to be healthier and to give and to give and to give, and not to take so much, right? But in those efforts, sometimes my motives are pure. The book talks about this in a few places. I could go into something with pure motive and still screw up, right? And when I do, that's okay. Hopefully I learn from it. I inventory it. I make it right. Sorry. And here's how I'm going to change. And thank you for bringing it to my attention. Or I realize any of those innumerable ways I can make my amends. But I'm going to mess up. And that's okay. I'm not going to drink or drug over it. I'm not going to do anything else destructive. It's just like in that sex ideal. If I truly learn from it and truly want to get better. All right. So I vigorously commence this way of living. And I already forgot. I don't know if Abby, you gave us vigorously. If not, okay. So again, vigorously with a lot of action, with a lot of activity, right? It's not. So to commence something is to begin it, to start it. I'm not easing into this. I'm vigorously going into it, like with extreme levels of attention and energy. I'm sorry, I saw you coming forward, Abby. I didn't know if you were going to give that or give that again, or were you just...
It's to carry out forcibly.
Thank you. Carry out forcibly, right? So a lot of passion behind how I'm going to commence this way of living. And again, as we cleaned up the past, what does that mean? As soon as I begin the 9th step amends process, I immediately get into 10. And by the way, as soon as I get into 10, I get into 11. And by the way, as soon as I get into 11, I get into 12. There is no sense waiting and delaying living in these discipline steps. I even know some people who start to get their sponsees into these disciplines at 10, 11, and 12 earlier than 9. And again, some balance. Let's not jump too far ahead because 10 is built on 4 through 9. So my opinion, let's get into 9. But by the time someone's 1, 2, 3 amends in, they better be praying for someone to sponsor or a step guide. And to do that, to be a healthy step guide or sponsor, they got to be living in these disciplines of 10, 11, and 12, in my opinion. So I can do this. I can continue to grow and to be healthy and then be a leader and a mentor and a sponsor in recovery. Why? Because I've entered the world of the Spirit. I'm not living in the world of David. At least I'm trying not to. I'm trying to get, I'm still digging out from under that crush of the self-imposed crisis, digging out of that hole, shoving off the self, trying to get cocooned and surrounded and enveloped by God so that I could go and act on his behalf and help other people. This is the way. And if you're new, and I probably, so we got our buddy Jeremy here, who we met in treatment on Friday night. And now he's going to be working, taking the steps with me. David and I met him the other night, right? We're going to, I said to the group, and I'll say it again to Jeremy and to God and everybody here, you want 12-step recovery? Please understand what you're signing up for. A lifetime of service. How many people have been taken down because they came in, they got better, they said, "Ooh, I got better. Ain't it grand? The wind stopped blowing. I'm not drinking. I'm not drugging. I'm not gambling. I'm not overeating. I'm not cutting. I'm not bullying. I'm not fighting. I'm not raging. I got what I need. Yeah, I'll come around to some of these meetings. I'll drop $1 in the basket. That's enough." No, it ain't. This is a lifetime pledge of service. That's what I'm really getting into here now that I'm in the world of the Spirit. How do I go from here? How do I know how that's going to go? Well, I'm going to figure it out with God and my fellows in unity. And I'm going to jump into service and people are going to help me. But I'm going to grow in understanding and effectiveness. What does that look like? I don't know. This is why we live in these disciplines. That's why I get into prayer and meditation, because more is going to be revealed, right? God's got a different path for each of us. But I'll figure out what my path is as I continue to grow. Right? It's going to look different for everybody. This is not an overnight matter. Damn it. I want instant gratification. I want now. I don't want to have to earn this. I'm greedy. I'm selfish. I'm self-centered. I'm self-seeking. I must allay all those things. I must be patient. I will get things in God's time. And it's not going to be overnight. It's going to continue for my lifetime, which is a good thing. I've often joked that I would love, by the time I'm dead, another 40, 50 years, I'm still a young man, my tombstone, my gravestone is going to say, like, here lies Jedi David, right? He was a moderate man. He lived in balance. Wouldn't that be amazing if somebody said that about me? Wouldn't it be amazing if somebody said that about you guys? How many people from your past, maybe not the ones that know you today, would say, Janice, she was very moderate, very balanced. Andy, oh yeah, he was always very even keeled. Not one of us, I guarantee. We were all peaks and valleys. We were all in extremes. But over the course of my lifetime, as I grow in understanding and effectiveness, I stabilize. And not so many peaks and valleys, some ups and downs. That's just life, right? But it's less deviation for me.
So I want to add something. Yeah, I want to add one more thing. So in the second step, we've had certain spiritual beliefs, right? In the fifth step, we commit spiritual growth. Now we're having a spiritual experience. Now we've entered the world of the Spirit. And this is a segue from what David said. This is either a challenge or a consideration. Let's talk about this in the meeting. Why don't we, when they say, does anyone have a topic today? Let's talk about the world of the Spirit. Let's see how silent the room becomes because no one's doing this work. Not sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is going to get me sober. It's going to get maybe abstinence. I know a lot of people that have abstinence in the rooms for many 24 hours, and I want nothing that they have. But if I live in these disciplines of 10, 11, and 12, and if I'd done this work prior to this thing, it is absolutely impossible in my experience not to have a personality change sufficient enough to recover. And guess what? When I came into the rooms of AA, I loathed myself. I knew I had a drinking and drug problem long before I got here, but I hated who I become. I was a terrible husband, a terrible father. I couldn't keep a job. Everything that I did was just touch. I was destroying it. And in a short few 24 hours, and I'm not saying it was in a year or 2 years, or maybe it was 5, maybe it was 10. I don't know. Things drastically started changing in my life. Did the external world change? No. My wife didn't need to change. My kids didn't need my change. My employer didn't need to change. I needed to change. And these steps are designed for me to have an internal change so that my insides start to match my outsides. That is the action I'm trying to perform here so that I can walk around. And David's, what he brought up about, at his death, it's not that far-fetched. I've thought about this. I'm in my 60s. It's like, I want a bunch of people to come to my funeral. I want a lot of you to come. I want every one of you guys to come here and say wonderful things about me. And so if you're up there in my age, you've thought about this. I'm assuming maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm just saying. But it's like, if I do this work, it's absolutely impossible for me not to get recovered, past tense. But to stay here, I must practice the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12 throughout the day. What is this 10th step? The 10th step is a spot check inventory in the moment. And what do we have here on this earth? Really, what do we have? And Scott L. does this, the guy out of Nashville, Tennessee. What does a moment look like? What does this moment look like? What is this moment? That's what I got, this moment right here. I need to be awake, not asleep dreaming I'm awake. Always awake. Available to me this power in my life that I can invite him in. And it's like, and Mark Houston uses another example here. He says, it's like being in church all day long. I have an amazing relationship with my wife. I have an amazing relationship with my children today. I have an amazing relationship with all my customers. I own my own business. I'm very successful. My neighbors, I can't remember the last time I had a confrontation today because I'm always inviting God in. I'm always living in the disciplines of 10. Why? Because step 10 means we never clock out. Never clock out. I'm always in 10. So the one thing that we read here, and I'm talking about this, is the world of spirit. Our next function, that's our next action, is to grow, and I circle the word grow. As David pointed out, this is not maintenance. I don't want to maintain the people over here. Yes, I do want to maintain that, but I need to grow. What? In effectiveness and understanding of what God's will is for me. Again, like I said earlier, God's in my tomorrow. He's got a plan for me already. I just don't know what it looks like yet. But if I do this work here, I've entered the world of spirits, and I look at this next function is to grow in understanding effectiveness, then I get to take direction from God. We'll get into that in step 11, because step 11 is about a conscious contact with this power. Like I don't have to get in line. Like, God, take a number. I'll get to you. Right now I got a war over there with Hamas and Israel, and we got Ukraine and Russia. No. Because remember, God is either everything or he's nothing. God has no beginning, no end. At least my God of no understanding is no beginning, no end, which means I can't see him because there's no beginning and no end. But I just know he exists because I've seen him through the experience of you and through me, that he does exist in my life and is available to me all the time. So why wouldn't I want to practice this so I can have a better life? And by the way, so I can benefit other people today, be of maximum service to God and all his kids. Like, I get to do that all day long. That just blows me away still, that I'm an agent of God, one who acts on behalf of another. That another is God. This is an amazing process, and it never ends. I said, we don't clock out on 10.
So I'm just going to reread the second half of this paragraph, which really gets into the mechanics of how we do our spot check inventories one or many times over the course of the day. Okay? Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
Anything, Abby, or okay?
She already okay. I'll just
she did. Go ahead.
So
go.
Yeah, we'll
Please.
go back and forth a little bit here. So in this part of the paragraph, and David already gave a little bit of a sneak preview of it, we've got these sort of spiritual action words, right? There are mechanics, there are actual tasks, things that I am supposed to do as I go through my day, spot checking my behavior, right? So the first one is, here's my spiritual watchword is watch. So as I'm going through my day, I need to watch. What am I watching for? Well, I'm going to watch for selfishness. So me being concerned about me, dishonesty, me lying or omitting the truth, resentment, right? Blaming you for me being upset when I set the train rolling, and fear, right? Which is an overabundance of self-reliance that's failing me. And all of these we know we covered well if we were thorough and honest in our fourth step inventory. So I need to continue to watch for these things over the course of the day. And then when these crop up, we already said this, both of us, a couple of times, not if, when. Again, doesn't excuse our behavior. I don't wantonly go and do or say stupid things, but I'm just going to mess up. I'm still a fallible human, guys. So when I do screw up, when I mess up, careful how you read this. It's my job when I see this, because I was watching, at once I need to ask God to remove them. That is not the same as me asking God to remove them at once. I don't say, God, you must remove this from me right now. No, it is God. I realized I caught myself. I did something stupid. Can you please help me with this? On your timeline, by the way, God. God is not my valet. He's not my servant. He's not my agent. That is not how this thing works. I serve him. So when I catch this, when I'm acting out in selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, I immediately need to ask God, to remove them from me. Hopefully I don't do it again. Or, maybe it's a bad pattern of mine. Acting out in rage, talking smack, making inappropriate jokes or comments at people's expense. If I don't stop at once, maybe it gets better. Maybe that behavior starts to erode. I hope so. So ask is the second one. I got watch, then I got to asking God. Then here's my next spiritual action word, watch word, discuss. You need to talk to somebody about it. Sponsor? Sure. One of my running buddies, David? Sure. Anybody. I've gone to my sponsees, guys that I take through the work, because I want to be accountable to them. I've said and done some stupid things when I'm being, Mr. Big Shot, Captain AA in a meeting and talking smack about someone in front of one of my sponsees. And I texted him later and I did a formal written 10 step. I said, let me talk to you, man. Like, it was terrible behavior for me to model in front of you. Well, anybody it can be. Should I take all this to my sponsor? I don't know. We're all different. If I'm hiding something from my sponsor, yeah, I should take it to my sponsor. But, I have the relationship with my sponsor, and I was just with him again on Friday, and he's like, hey, man, you know when to come to me. You want to take some stuff to some of your other buddies like David? And he named them. He's like, I'm okay with that. He's like, just don't hide things. And that's what a beautiful way to be in a relationship like that. So I need to watch. I need to ask. I need to discuss. Oh, by the way, when do I discuss them? Time reference, immediately. Not 3 weeks later when I've been losing sleep because I said or did this stupid thing. Immediately. Word number 4, I make amends quickly if I harmed anyone. Sometimes I'm in resentment, selfishness, fear, and dishonesty, and it could be just in my head. Might not even be something real. It could be fancied, right? Something I'm making up, a crazy argument I'm having in my head. But if I said or did something, I need to very quickly make it right with that person. So amend is that fourth sort of key spiritual action word. And then the last one, I resolutely turn. So we got watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn our thoughts to someone we can help. I can't always, in the midst of my day, if I'm spending important time with my wife, if I'm in the middle of a business meeting, I can't jump out of an important conversation with my wife or an important business meeting to stop and call my sponsor or to call David and be like, hey, I just screwed this thing up. I need to tell you all about it. It's like, but I can do that immediately as soon as I'm freed up. But in the moment, I can still turn my thoughts to somebody else. And as soon as I start thinking about somebody else, it's going to start to right size my crazy brain, my crazy selfish brain. And then maybe if I've turned my thoughts to someone, then when I'm done spending time with my wife or I'm out of that business meeting, maybe I can call that person that I had turned my thoughts towards. Maybe it's a newcomer. Maybe it's someone outside of recovery. Maybe it's my in-laws and I'm going to call and talk to them about one of their health things. Doesn't matter. I got to start thinking about them. And then that often leads me to being of help. And if you didn't notice this in this little section, circle the words. So it says, when these crop up, we ask God. Circle God. And then right underneath that, it says, we discuss them with someone. Circle someone. And then 2 sentences below, circle help. If I'm in God, if I'm with somebody else, and I'm helping, does that sound like our 3 legacies? Recovery, unity, and service? Look at the beauty of the 10th step. I'm in all 3 legacies all at once. How cool is that? I love easier, softer, more convenient. Every time I do a spot check and I do it correctly, I'm living in all 3 legacies. And then the last thought here, and I'll turn it over to David for the big finish. Love and tolerance of others is our code. That's my system for living. That's my moral compass direction. Look at what it says. I am to be loving. That means caring. I am to be tolerant. That means accepting of others, of all others. It doesn't say some people. It doesn't say I'm going to be loving and tolerant of my business partners, except when they piss me off. I'm going to be loving and tolerant of my wife, except when she pisses me off. I'm going to be loving and tolerant of the guy who cut me off in traffic, except when he cuts me off in traffic. No. Loving and tolerant of all of God's kids all the time.
Thank you, David. Yeah, don't want to rehash what he said, so I'll try to be a little bit off top, right on topic here. But it says, so continue. So this is, again, the process that I'm going to go through here. This is, again, another word for function, an action. Continue is an action word here. To watch for, and we look for selfishness. We find a great description of it on page 62 in the first full paragraph. And it says selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. And how deep is that root? It's very, very deep before I do a 4th step. But I have cleared up, I know how deep my roots are now because I've done a honest and thorough 4th step here. So this cropped up in my life, not if, but when. And then I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. And we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that sometime in the past, we've made decisions based on self, just later placed us in position to be hurt. In the world of spirit, there's no room for self. So this is why I got to use these disciplines in my life so I can be rid of self. Because in the next paragraph on page 62 in the first sentence there, it says, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. If I stop making problems for myself, I won't have all these troubles. This is why this discipline works so well for me, because I'm going to watch for selfishness. Resentment is the number 1 offender of alcoholics. It destroys more alcoholics than any other thing. I know that now. I've studied this book up to this point. Fear is an evil and corroding thread. It runs through and through our existence here. And these are going to crop up. And we ask God at once, the next spiritual discipline here, at once we ask God to remove these things. That's step 6 and 7. If I can remove my defects of character, if I can remove my selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, and fear, wouldn't I have been in a better position than I was when I got here? I couldn't. I don't have the power to do that. I desperately need to have God in my life here so he can do that. We discuss them with someone immediately. I don't bring up things in meetings. I bring up solution-based topics in meetings. I come out of the big book. Not everybody likes me, or David for that matter. Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. Like if I piss you off, that's because you haven't studied the big book in my experience. But we discuss them with someone immediately, meaning my sponsor is not available during the day because of the job that he performs. So I 10-step with David a lot of times, and I'll shoot him a text. Hey, when you're available, give me a buzz, because I give spiritual consent. What does spiritual consent look like? I explain the situation briefly, not a diatribe of all the things that I think I did wrong or she did. And we get to the 4th column here and we find out where I was wrong, where my faults were, where my mistakes were at. And he gets to tell me, without my debate, without arguing here, the way he sees it. Spiritual consent, I don't give that to everybody. I just don't. I give it to somebody sponsees like David said. Sometimes I say, dude, you got to wear the sponsor hat. That's all there is. Esteban knows. I do it to him sometimes. It's just how this works. We do this shoulder to shoulder, folks. I do this shoulder to shoulder because that's how the book is designed. And then so we make amends quickly. I do not say I'm sorry. I said this before. I don't use the word I'm sorry. That is a watered down version. I wore it out. No one wants to hear about it, even though I've been sober for a few 24 hours. I use the word wrong. I was wrong because I did this. In the future, if I do something like this, would you please point it out to me so I don't have the same behavior? And maybe I get short with my wife. Maybe I take someone's inventory. Maybe I act out in traffic. I don't want to be that guy any longer. So I make amends quickly if I harm anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone who can help. Again, like David said, I don't need to go to a treatment center, open up the door, run in and say, who's the sickest guy you got? I got to work with somebody right this second. Bill worked with like 96 people when he first got sober over like first 6 months. I'll probably butcher the heck out of these numbers here. He had absolutely no success until he got to Dr. Silkworth. I am armed with the facts about myself. I know what the problem is. I know what the solution is and the practical program of action. I am prepared to do this, but I can always turn my thoughts to someone I can help. And my rule of thumb, because I got this from my very first thought sponsor, is if I think of him more than 2 times in a day, within an hour, within a half hour, I pick up the phone and call him. Out of nowhere, just call him. Even if I have not harmed anyone, even if resentment, selfishness, fear hasn't cropped up, I still pick up the phone. That's still the same rule of thumb. It goes for all you people here. If you get in my, I'm going to call you. And then it says love and tolerance of others is our code. That sounds like a Dr. Bob reference. Like he is just such a humble guy who helped thousands of people carrying this message to them. It's like just an amazing process. If I didn't do this, my father-in-law lives with me. I practice love and tolerance. I bring God in all the time. He's always critical of everything I do. You know what I don't do? I don't argue with him. I don't debate things with him. I don't react to him. It's okay. He's 91 years old. He's a little crotchety. It is what it is, man. He doesn't feel good ever. I show love and tolerance. That does not come through me or of me. That comes through me when I incorporate this power in my life. This is what the 7th step is having a conscious, or before I get to a conscious contact with God in step 11. But again, step 10 means we never clock out.
Perfect place to stop. Next week, the 10th step promises.